We want to have our topic discussed in this segment at the beginning. So I'm going to ask you, Susan and Jennifer, to hold on. The rest of you, get at the ready there. Give us a call. Also, want to get your question or comment out there at EWTN Radio's YouTube channel and Facebook page. So leave it there. Jeff will retrieve it. Matt on the phones. If you're a first timer, submitter, or caller, want to know, I'll ring my bell for you. So Sue, welcome, welcome.
Oh, so good to be back.
Oh, it's so good to have you back. And last week you were on with Jack because I was sick, and I really appreciated him sitting in. And the two of you always have a good time together. So thank you for cooperating with our pinch hitter there.
Yes, and he gave us a new word.
Oh, he
And
did?
it's something, it describes what we do every Wednesday. We de-wackify things. I love that word when he said it. I said, Jack, that is so good. We de-wackify these things.
Leave it to Jack. That sounds very much like my husband. I like it a lot. De-wackify. Wacky Wednesdays where we de-wackify the wacky. Woohoo!
We de-wackify the wacky is exactly what we do here. Well, we try anyway. We make a valiant effort.
Oh, boy, that's great. That's great. I'm glad to hear it. So, here we are. We're in the Advent season. We're not in the Christmas season. Christmas season starts with Christmas, but we're in this Advent season, this time of preparation. But, one of the beautiful things about this time of the year is that it really is just chock full of wonderful saints and feast days of our Blessed Mother. It's a really rich time for us spiritually. And when we think of Christmas, of course, we think of St. Nicholas. And I know you want to share with us today about St. Nicholas.
Yes. St. Nicholas, he is really where we get Santa Claus from. We look at Santa Claus as being such a secular symbol, and he's become that. But once again, are we kind of selling out to the secular culture? We need to reclaim him because Santa Claus actually derives from the name Sinterklaas, which is the Dutch name for St. Nicholas. That's where that comes from. And St. Nicholas was such a beautiful saint, heroic generosity. We all know that story of him. He was born in the 4th century, in what is now Turkey. And he was very moved by his story as a young man. So he kind of started out like this. He was very moved by the story of a couple who had fallen on hard times and they couldn't provide dowries for their 3 daughters. I think we've all heard that story. And he gave them little sacks of gold from his inheritance. And he would drop it in either through the window, or some say he did it through the chimney, which is where Santa Claus through the chimney comes from. And he did it twice for the first 2 daughters. And then when he went back to do it the 3rd time, the owner of the house, the father of the daughters, was waiting and caught him. And he begged the man, please don't tell anyone. But it was too late. He was already on his way to becoming one of the most, famous gift givers of all time, was St. Nicholas. And even though his life story has been obscured by time and legend, it's really a history worth exploring. And William Bennett wrote a book several years ago now called The True St. Nicholas and Why He Matters to Christmas. And he details the story of this very heroic saint. And how, he became the foundation for Santa Claus. He was a man of God who worked tirelessly for his flock. He was ordained a priest and then eventually wanted to become the bishop of Myra, I believe, is the city where he was the bishop of. And he just loved his flock. But I think the most remarkable part of St. Nicholas's story really comes after he died, because people just came out of the woodwork to tell stories about this bishop and his wonderful generosity, how he changed their hearts, the kind of good that he did for everybody. It was like one miracle story after another of this St. Nicholas helping people with this great generosity of his. And he just became really an international phenomena in the old world. I think there's like 2,500 churches, monasteries, hospitals, schools in his honor. And at some point, in the Middle Ages, people began exchanging gifts on his feast day, which is today. And that was in memory of the bishop's generosity. And in some places, children would wake up and they would find their shoes filled with fruit and nuts with gifts from the kind old saint. And I don't know about you, Johnnette, but we had that tradition in my family. We would lay out our stockings on the dining room table before we went to bed on December 5th. And then we would wake up and claim our prizes. Our stockings would be filled with things. And if we were to get rocks, or at one point, Mom found coal somewhere. I don't know where she found it. And
Oh,
whoever got the coal
I
in the
hope it wasn't
stocking,
in your stocking.
no, I got it a couple times. Don't worry. We all did. All six of us had it at one point or another. That would mean you better shape up because Christmas is 3 weeks away and you're on the naughty list. So you better shape it up. But I remember that so distinctly and how excited we were to wake up and run downstairs and there our stockings would be all lined up on the table. And we would have stuff in there, all kinds of candies and nuts and things like that, and little gifts for us. And if we were good, that told us that bigger things were to come when St. Nicholas came back on December the 25th as Santa Claus. So, we kind of had them together in my generation, but I think that's pretty much fallen away now. And it's much like I think Halloween, where we've kind of given it over to the secular culture and let it be all about gals and witches and sorcery and stuff like that. And we need to take some of these things back. They belong to us. They're Christian. And by taking them back, think of the evangelizing that we can do by saying, no, Santa Claus is based on Saint Nicholas, who was a very
Hmm.
generous man. And hey, how generous are you? This is why we're generous around Christmas time when we give gifts to one another. These are gifts to show our love and our affection to one another. Um, and it's I kind of become just kind of a big gift giving season. I know it when we used to shop at malls, but nobody shops there anymore. But you would be in fear of your life out in the parking lot. People would be running you down. I mean, they were mean around this time of year because it was getting close to Christmas. They weren't done shopping yet. It's gotten so distorted. It's gotten so distorted. But I love to say, and I say this to myself so often when I drive around on Christmas, I see the lights and I say, look, Lord, they can call it whatever they want, but Christmas is always going to be your birthday.
That's
They can
exactly
call
right.
it whatever they want, just like they call yoga exercise. No, it isn't. And it's never been it. That's not why it was created to be exercise. It was created to worship God. Christmas was created to remember the birth of our Savior. That was our salvation, the beginning of our salvation history. And that's what Christmas is always going to be. And you can call it whatever you want, but it's always going to be the birth of Christ. That's just what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, and praise God for that. And one of the things I think, I'm seeing less and less of as I drive around, although I do in some areas, but it's not as pronounced as it used to be, and that is having a creche in the front yard, having
Yeah.
Jesus and St. Joseph, the baby Jesus, St. Joseph and Mary. Of course, baby Jesus shouldn't be placed in that little manger until it's Christmas Eve, till Christmas Day comes. But all of that being said, it's sad to see how secularized Christmas has become. But we can be the game changers. There are so many Catholics, right? And if we all began to practice the faith, and if we all began to allow ourselves to display our faith in a public way, boy, oh boy, we could make a great change. We could remind people without saying a word, what this season is truly all about. 833-288 EWTN. That's 833-288-3986 is the way that you can join us. We like to take this first segment and get us anchored in the program, but I'm happy you're there, Susan and Jennifer, asking you just to stay with us. We want for you to call too. We've got a few lines open for you. Let's fill them up. Let's fill them up. 833-288-EWTN. Also available for you out there at EWTN Radio's YouTube channel and Facebook page. Jeff Burson will collect your question and get it up on the board for me. Matthew Gabensky is going to take your call. And if you're a first timer, I'm going to ring my bell. We all have a job to do. And it's all fun. It's all fun, meant to welcome you to our program today. Also, too, Sue, there's a lot of misconceptions about Easter, or Christmas rather, and we talk about it every year. But, the Christmas tree, the Advent wreath, so many people think that these customs, these traditions that we have, are somehow rooted in paganism, and we're being pagan by using them or, erecting them in our own homes. Are you there, Sue? Okay, I don't have Sue with me right now, but that is a fact of the matter, and I think it's interesting, friends, to realize that these beautiful traditions that we have are not in and of themselves evil in any way, shape, or form, and we have been able to use these traditions with great effect in our own lives, and reminding us of the fact that if you look at a Christmas tree and you notice its stature and you notice its shape, it's very pointed, right? And where is it pointing? It's pointing to the heavenlies. It can draw our heart and our mind to the reason for the season. Many times, our Christmas tree is uh, topped with an angel. And we hope so. That angel is a sign of those angels that came to the shepherds on that beautiful Christmas morn when our Lord was born, right? Singing, heralding his coming, those beautiful strains that filled the heavenlies because the Savior had come into the world. In addition to that, sometimes it's topped by a star. What is that star? That star is reminiscent of what? Reminiscent of the three wise men who were led to the creche of our Lord by a star. And one of the things that I like to do is to think about those many stars in my life, those many individuals and people who led me more deeply into relationship or into relationship at all with our Lord Jesus Christ, right? Who have been the stars in my life that have led me along the way? It's good to remember and during this time of the year to wing a prayer for them, whether they're still living or deceased, to thank God and to let them know. What a Christmas present that would be to someone, to let them know that because of you, I have been drawn nearer to our Lord. Because of you, I came out of a lifestyle that was immoral and am now following the one who is the way, the truth, and the life. What a beautiful present that would be, a present of gratitude, very reminiscent of what Sue was talking with us about earlier, St. Nicholas. I think she's back with us now, Sue. So there she is. And
Yes.
so, Sue, we were talking about these, the Christmas tree, the Advent wreath, the wreaths themselves that many are what's the word that I want to use? Pulling away from using because somehow they feel that they're involving themselves in a pagan custom.
Oh, that's so true. Um, they like to say that it is true that the wreath, the use of a wreath decorated with candles, that does date back to pre-Christian Germanic people, but it has been used by Christians since the Middle Ages as part of the spiritual preparation for Christmas. Father Saunders from the Diocese of Arlington wrote a beautiful article about it, and it says that, in fact, we have a blog out there that you can read about it. And it says that ancient people used the wreaths during the cold days of December as a sign of hope for the spring to come. This is, in the pre-Christian era. Like in Scandinavia during the winter, lighted candles were placed around a wheel, and prayers were offered to the god of light to turn the wheel of the earth back toward the sun so that the days would get longer and warmer. Well, the church, of course, would never condone such a practice, but it was a time when the early church father Tertullian, he condemned the use of evergreen limbs in the home because of its association with the pagan culture of Rome. Um, and he had written about, like, let them over whom the fires of hell are imminent, affixed to their posts, laurels doom presently. You are a light of the world and a tree evergreen. If you renounce temples, make not your own gate a temple. But it's important to note that he didn't condemn the greens, just the purpose for which the greens were being used. So there's nothing wrong with getting a wreath and putting candles on it. There's nothing wrong with that. And we've been doing that since the Middle Ages, using that as part of our preparation. Legend has it, that at the time when Jesus was born, it was in the dead of winter, and every tree throughout the world miraculously shook off its ice and snow and produced new shoots of green. So these greens had tremendous symbolic meaning to Christians. At the same time, Christian missionaries preaching to Germanic and Slavic people, they were taking a more lenient approach to these practices, such as evergreen trees, because, they have a big thing about Christmas trees, too, that they think, Christmas trees were never a religious symbol in the first place. They were always just a pagan symbol. But anyway, missionaries believed that the incarnation proclaimed Christ's lordship over the natural symbols that had previously been used for worship of pagan gods. Not only individual human beings, but cultures, symbols, and traditions, that could all be converted. And
Yes.
some believe, mistakenly, they believe that this means that we borrowed their customs. No, we didn't borrow them. We converted them. And there's nothing wrong with us converting certain practices of other religions. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. We're not borrowing it from them. We didn't copy it off of them. And we're not, doing pagan things. We're not doing that. So, but that's the Advent wreath. The Advent wreath is one of several aspects of Christmas that people like to say are derived from paganism, but that's not true. Our church, really, one of the reasons it spread as far as it did is because it was accepting of cultural things. It didn't adopt those cultural things. It converted those cultural practices of people to try to make Christianity something that they could be more familiar with, and
Right.
it wouldn't seem so strange to them. That's why we did what we did, and that's why the church became the largest church in the world as it is today, and also why it spread faster. There is no other religion that ever spread as fast as Christianity did on the face of the earth
Yeah.
in the whole history
And
of humankind.
And we can see how it is that St. Paul actually implemented those techniques in his evangelization efforts as well. We're going to come back. Susan from San Diego is going to be with us, and Jennifer from San Antonio, Texas. You can be with us too. 833-288-EWTN. It's a Wacky Wednesday with Sue Brinkman. Join us. Coming right back. Stay tuned.
EWTN Radio.
One time somebody said to me, "Why don't you air these people?" And I said, "No, because I don't think they're Catholic." He says, "By what right do you have to say that?" I said, "I own the network."
Mother Angelica Live Classics. Every morning, 2 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Hi, I'm Doug Keck. This is an EWTN Bookmark Brief, speaking with the one and only Raymond Arroyo about something very new and special, his Christmas CD, Merry and Bright. So, Raymond, what prompted this?
Well, this came as a result of our viewers over many years seeing the Christmas special on the world over and asking me, "Do you want to do a CD? Please do a CD." Well, I finally did a CD. It's Christmas Merry and Bright, 20 pieces, Doug. We did original arrangements of some classic, beautiful Christmas hymns, carols, as well as some contemporary classics. The album's a lot of fun for families and I think for anybody on a long car ride. It is a blast.
Okay, well, thanks. Raymond Arroyo, his Christmas Merry and
Christmas.
Bright CD. Of course, Eternal Music, available through the Eternal Word, religious catalog, of course, EWTNRC.com for all things Catholic. I'm Doug Keck. Thanks for stopping by. Hope to see you next time.
For over 40 years, EWTN has been praying with and for people throughout the world. Today, we want to pray for anything that weighs on your heart. Send us your prayer request at EWTN.com/prayer.
Matt Swaim here. Join Anna Mitchell and me on the Sunrise Morning Show as we give you the latest news, weather, sports, and everything you need to bring your Catholic faith into your everyday life. Now back to Women of Grace with Johnnette Williams.
Join in on the conversation. The Women of Grace phone lines are open. 1-833-288-EWTN, 1-833-288-3986.
Well, welcome back, everybody. You are listening to Women of Grace Live. I'm Johnnette Williams. Happy to be with you today. Eager to hear from you. Yes, I am. And so is Matthew Kubensky, our call screener, and Sue Brinkman, who is with us since it is Wednesday and a wacky one. We do invite you to give us a call, 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. We're here for you. We surely are. If you're a first-time caller, tell me. If I find out about it via Matthew, I will ring my bell. We've also got an opportunity for you out there at EWTN Radio's YouTube channel and Facebook page. Simply use the chat feature there. And when you do, Jeff will get your question or comment, put it up on the board. We'll address it. Again, a first-time submitter. Let us know. We'll ring our bell. Susan and Jennifer are two of the most patient women in the world. We're going to go to Susan first, and you then, Jennifer. Susan, Susan is with us in San Diego, California, listening to us via Sirius XM station 130. How you doing, Susan?
Hello, hi.
Thanks for holding all
Great
that
show.
time.
I didn't know so much. Well, it's a good thing because I didn't know a lot about that stuff that you guys were saying about Christmas stuff. It was really informative. So, anyways, so my question for Sue is, I go to a gym around here, and the woman that has been helping me for about a year, I go this machine and do this and that, this much weight on the machines and stuff and whatever. She recently mentioned that she does Reiki, whatever it is, and that she's been, she actually is a person that does it to people. And she's never had, physical contact with me. She knows I'm super Catholic. She sees my scapular. We've talked about it. But she's never tried to overstep. I'm wondering if they have to touch you to have any effects on you.
I don't know about just having to touch you. It depends on what they're involved in, because that's occult-based Reiki. They're channeling energy. They're serving as the channel for this energy, which they refer to as the Reiki source. And source is with a capital S, so it's some sort of an entity that they're calling upon, and we know what entity that is. It just depends on how deeply involved she is in all that. I mean, she could be putting curses on people. She could be doing a whole lot of different things with whatever she's involved in there. But Reiki is not good to have it done to you. So that as long as she's not actually touching you or doing anything to you, I would think you're going to be okay. But it's unfortunate that she's involved in that. She's probably a Reiki master, which means she's been through all 3 steps of the attunement. And that's, in the second step of the attunement, there's 3 steps to it. The second one is when they are assigned a spirit guide, and that person is who guides them and teaches them from that. So they're actively under the direction of a demonic entity, and they don't even know it, or they pretend it's not true.
And it one other thing, Susan Brinkman, we've got 2 Susans here. Susan Brinkman is the fact that spirits are not contagious, so there has to be an opening in us for something ill to happen, but we also have to have our guard up all of the time.
I'm stay in a state of grace. You stay in a state of grace, you're going to be okay. And you're wearing a scapular. I'm sure that you're fulfilling the sacraments. Sacramental requirements. I'm sure you're doing that. You're having a daily prayer life. That's so important to stay close to Jesus. He's going to protect you. He's a good father. He's a very good father. And he'll protect you in that kind of thing. And just like you said, you're right, Johnnette. They're not infectious. They're not infectious. However, if people are around you and they're calling upon these different spirits and you are unprotected, you are somebody who doesn't really practice your faith, just says that they're Catholic, that sort of thing. Yeah, it could begin to oppress you. Or cause you some problems. But like Johnnette said, there's got to be an opening in there somewhere. There's got to be an opening for them to come in there and really begin to harass you.
Does that help you, Susan?
Yeah, I'm happy because I've never really felt any weird effects or anything. And sometimes I'm I got to run out. I'm going to noon mass, and she knows that I'm Catholic too, and she's never even said anything weird, so I feel better now. So, anyways, okay. Good. Well, thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm going to ask you to hold for just one moment because we've got Beth with us, and she's in a doctor's office. So we want to get to her question really fast, and I appreciate your understanding. Let's get to Beth. She's in Monroe, Michigan, listening she's there. Listening on EWTN.com. Hey, Beth, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you so much for taking my call. My concern is my daughter's fiance's sister, who they're with a lot, practices witchcraft with friends of hers. Are they in danger?
Depends on I'm sorry, were you going to say something? Go ahead.
No, that was the question.
Okay, yeah, it depends on what she's practicing. Witchcraft is all over the map. There really is no definition of witchcraft and what they're practicing. Some are nature worshipers. Others are into, black, they like to call it white magic. They're into magic, which is sorcery. It just depends on what they're into. They weave spells, conjure curses. This is the kind of person that they're hanging around with. I mean, if they're okay with that, I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be. But again, stay in that state of grace, because that's really your protection is to stay close to the Lord and pray to Him to protect you from that. Especially if you've got your angels, you should definitely be calling upon them to keep you safe from that sort of thing. But yeah, they could very well be in danger. It just depends on what if they do something that upsets this fiance's sister, and she gets mad at them and decides to put a spell on them, and they're not in a state of grace. Hey, that spell could take hold. Curses work. They work because their demonic powers are what's fueling them.
Yeah, that's so scary. Like if we all get together in a group setting and I have grandchildren, are we safe? Or, I mean, I know what you're saying about staying in the state of grace, but it's still like my other daughter has questions about that.
About what?
About like if we all get together in a group setting, because now that their family, when we get together and stuff, are we all safe?
Again, it's gonna depend on what this girl is into. I think this is a question that your family's going to have to address to your daughter's fiance, and just say, listen, we're concerned about it. This is something that's very dangerous what she's involved in. She might not think so, but this is the truth, and the things that she's involved in are dangerous. We don't really like it. And I think this is something that your family might need to sit down and have a discussion about before you bring it to the sister. Yeah.
Right. And our screener there, Matt, says, might the sister-in-law accidentally mess them up if she puts white magic on them, thinking she's being good for them? Because there is no white magic. Magic is magic. It's all an affront to God. It's all a sin against the first commandment. It's putting your trust and faith in an idol. In this case, a demonic activity. So, I would want to be very careful about it, frankly, Beth. And I think that, Sue, you give good advice there. It's something that you all need to kind of work through and potentially try to help this woman get out of it, beginning, first of all, with prayer. And you know what I'm going to tell you. The rosary, the rosary, the rosary, the rosary. You can also have masses celebrated for her specifically. You can use our website. We offer that opportunity right there. Have a series of masses prayed for her. Pray the rosary. And at some point in time, if the door opens to a positive discussion, positive I mean discussing the issue, then I would walk through that door knowing that the Holy Spirit's opening that door for you to evangelize.
Thank you. That's exactly what I needed, concrete solutions and advice. So thank you so much, both of you.
Oh, you're welcome, Beth, and God bless you.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, Sue, it's interesting because with her question and with our first caller's question, that one passage that keeps coming to my mind is from 2 Timothy chapter 3. And here it is that St. Paul is guiding and leading and teaching his disciple Timothy. And he is going on about he says there will be terrible times in the last days. Men will be lovers of self, proud, arrogant, abusive to their parents. And he goes on, reckless, pompous. He goes on, gives all of these negative adjectives, descriptives of what the behavior will be like. And then he says this, and he's talking about false teachers. They will worm their way into the homes of silly women, always searching for the knowledge, but never able to arrive at the truth. And he says to his Timothy, he says, stay clear of them. And yikes. So, I just think that it's very important to be able to have an assertive plan in place.
I do too. I absolutely do. And I think that with witchcraft, it is so eclectic. It's hard to, that's why I say kind of try to talk this through, find out what exactly is she involved in. Some of them are just sort of herbalists, they just work with herbs. They don't do anything with spell casting and that. But others are very involved in that. They don't worship Satan. They do make that really clear. But again, there's no definition of it that says what is witchcraft. I mean, anybody who wants to can say they're a witch, and they're a witch.
Well, even identifying yourself that way
I
is
know.
is a negative to me because we know that the witch and the practices of witchery are not wholesome. They're not good. They're not true. They're not beautiful. So identifying yourself that way is making a statement about where your heart is, where your mind is, the things that you're interested in. And then the term witchcraft, it's the craft of a witch. So even the herbalist, and of course we would look at that as somewhat more benign than the rest, but they're probably ascribing attributes to the herbs that they don't have, or they're doing something to try to make those herbs effective in a way that is not intrinsic to the reality of what they are. So it all worries me. The whole
It
thing worries
does.
me.
It does. It does worry me. And they have to be very careful with that, inviting that person into the home. Because hey, what if you get in an argument with her and she decides to put a curse on you? And even in that case, a lot of these witches, when you talk to them, and you say, well, what is it that you do? And they'll describe things which is sorcery, and you'll say, well, wait a minute, isn't that weaving a spell? Yes, but that's not what we consider it to be. Hey, it doesn't matter what you consider it to be. If you're calling on a power to invest this power into this concoction that you're making to give to somebody in order to make them do what you want them to do, you are calling upon demonic forces to do that. That's what you're doing there. But a lot of them don't understand that themselves. And they just think, oh, no, we don't do any of that kind of stuff. And yet what they describe is all sorcery.
That's right.
They don't know what sorcery is.
That's right.
So it's a very difficult situation for her. We just definitely will keep her in our prayers.
For sure. Let's get to Jennifer. Jennifer has been just a dream in her patience.
Yes, you have.
San Antonio, Texas, listening to us via Guadalupe Radio Network. A shout out to all of the good people at Guadalupe stations all over the country. Hey, Jennifer, how are you?
Good. Hello, my friend. I'm calling because I've gotten to a debate with a friend of mine who's telling me about the group KISS, KISS, saying that they don't believe that it's meaning what I've heard it to be, kids in Satan's service. And I've heard it, well, first of all, the music is bad and the faces. So we're getting into a big debate about it. And then I'm hearing you talk about witchcraft, and I've also heard about Taylor Swift being a witch as well. So I'm not sure what to believe. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Kiss. There's a lot of rumors that swirl around. They obviously, as you were saying, Jennifer, they draw to themselves a lot of these conclusions about themselves because of their music and the way they look. But it's Kids in Satan Services is one of the names that they've been rumored to be named after. Kinder SS, another one. Knights in Satan Service. So it goes on and on. But the real reason for it is that one of the band members named Stanley, he came up with the name while Simmons and Chris were driving around New York City, and Chris mentioned that he had been in a band called Lips. So Stanley said something to the effect like, well, hey, what about if we call ourselves Kiss? So, but again, the way they look, the music and that is definitely going to call upon themselves these kinds of rumors. They've made that very attractive to themselves. But anyway, it's a good question. It's a very good question. And as far as Taylor Swift is concerned, that is going to there's something in one of her shows that seems to be summoning demons, and exorcists have issued warnings about it. That even if her intent was not to practice any witchcraft or to do any incantation, she's probably attracting a lot of them to her concerts by performing these songs, the songs that she's doing. It's the one song called Willow. She dances around. All her dancers are dressed in black capes, and they dance with these orbs, and there's elements of earth and fire or central part of the performance. And this could be problematic. Father Dan Rehill, he's an exorcist for the Diocese of Nashville. He spoke to Church Pop, and he was telling them why the concert, which includes that performance, could spiritually endanger attendees too. And he said that those who practice witchcraft harness energy, or they try to harness energy, and they look at the earth with the elements of fire, water, earth, and sky. They believe that they can harness the energies in these in some ways to do good and in some ways to do evil. But there's still, like Johnnette just said, there's no difference between white and black magic. The problem with the concert is that whether Taylor knows she's trying to imitate witches, or in fact she is doing some kind of cult ceremony during the show, is sort of irrelevant to the demons. That's what Father Ehil says. They don't care what her intention is. You know, she's very talented, very influential artist, and so the demons are going to take deep note of what she's doing and how she's doing it and who she's influencing. So when they imitate these rituals with these orbs and black capes, that looks like something you'd find in the woods. So, like I said, even if her intent isn't to do that, they don't care. They're, oh yeah, we'll come. They're going to come.
And I have a son, and I'm worried that he's being influenced by this kind of stuff, and with Harry Potter as well. I've heard a deacon say, "Oh, well, you can separate the fantasy as long as you let people know that it's just a fantasy from the fact that there's incantations in there, then they should be able to read it." I'm going, "Oh my gosh!" And this is coming from a deacon. Are you serious? I'm like, and this is why it's scaring me that this is somebody that's supposed to be going to the priesthood, and that worries me as well because I have a son, and if he's going to be influencing other people, that worries me as well. And my son's telling me about the fire, like you're saying, the fire, the wind, the ice, and so on and so forth. They're all being influenced, and that's what worries me.
It does. They develop a taste for this stuff. They get curious about it. They want to look more into it. And God knows there is, he only knows how many millions of websites are out there on the internet where they can get this information really at the click of a mouse. It's so readily available out there.
Well, and on the Harry Potter issue too, Sue and Jennifer, it's important to remember that those spells that are in Harry Potter are real spells. So it's not a benign kind of fantasy book. It doesn't even meet the standards of what good fantasy is. It was a phenomenon, I guess we would say, that happened in the culture with regard to it, and we've been advising against it since it first came out, which is many years ago now. But I do want to draw our attention to this whole area of witchcraft to a passage in Colossians in chapter 2, and it's verse 4 and verse 8. And this is what St. Paul writes to the Colossians. And he's warning them against false teachers. And he says, "I say this so that no one may deceive you by specious arguments. See to it that no one deceives you with any empty, seductive philosophy that follows mere human traditions according to the elemental powers or the cosmic powers of the world and not according to Christ." So, in a nutshell, that passage, I think, tells us what the fear is or the concern is with witchcraft or anything that's like it, or with individuals who say they are witches, or even in the Taylor Swift situation, using the guise of all of that as a showpiece. I can just in my mind imagine the demons swirling above all of that. Laughing and mocking the ignorance and the gullibility of people. So,
and especially the young girls.
Exactly.
Because she's got a lot of young girls that are attracted to her, and they sort of worship her as it is. And now they're putting themselves into a position where they could actually be. And this is according to Father Ehil. They could actually be attacked by some of those demonic forces that are being called upon. That can happen.
Well, you're putting yourself there, and of course you might have gone in ignorant to the fact that she was going to do something like that. But the fact of the matter is we cannot think that these things are just fun, because they're not. We're fooling around with powers and principalities, and we have to have a healthy respect for that reality. They're not stronger than God, right? But our ignorance, as you said earlier, Sue, and said it so well, is not going to protect us.
Exactly. He does not care. He does not play fair. Satan does not play fair. He's going to come at you. You open it. You even turn toward him, and he's right there. He's right there waiting. And I know it's kind of scary and creepy, but it's also the truth. It's also the truth. And you got to be very, very careful about it. Don't open yourself up to any of these forces, because once they get in, boy, I'll tell you what, it's very, very difficult to get rid of them. And any exorcist will tell you that. Just keep the door shut, because once you open it, it's going to be tough to get him out of there. And he's going to come up with all kinds of specious arguments, as you were just saying from Colossians, all kinds of arguments that are going to sound really good, like to say, oh, those Catholics, they're neocons, the stuff that they make up, they're just extremists and all that kind of stuff. And you're going to believe it. You're going to buy into all that kind of stuff. That's how he is. He's very clever. He has been deceiving mankind since the beginning of our history, since Adam and Eve. He knows how to do it. He's an expert. He's a champion at it. You will not outthink him. You will not outsmart him.
That's right. And, the interesting thing is, and I talked about this with the women on Saturday, the interesting thing is, notice, he always goes after the woman, because the woman is so important to the plan of God. She's the sign of the sacred. She's to call she's to call, the eyes of man up to the reality of who they are, created in the image and likeness of God. And even those passages from St. Paul, will worm their way into the homes of silly women. He's always targeting women, which tells us the tremendous grace that is ours by way of our authentic femininity and how he wants to convolute it. That's why we get under the mantle of our Blessed Mother. Well, Sue, thank you so very much for being with us today. I'm so grateful in every way, and I'm grateful for all of you, too. Thank you for making our program the program that it is. You make it what it is by way of your calls and your questions. Thank you so much. Until tomorrow, God bless all of you. Bye.
This is Conversations with Consequences, where we delve deeper into issues affecting our church, our country, and our core, the family.
As Catholics, we need to be informed, aware, and able to talk through some of the tough topics that we're facing in our culture and in our world. Conversations with Consequences gives us the tools to do so.
It's not enough to pray. We have to be a light for the world.
Conversations with Consequences, this Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
EWTN.
As we enter the holidays, we're talking about Old St. Nick. That's today's topic on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on most of these EWTN stations.